of the things he'd left behind, which included Faith and Mina.
"You think they'll be rolling out the red carpet for you?"
Eli asked, staring at the rapidly approaching island.
Mina might. Think Faith is more likely to set the dogs on me.
Not that he knew whether or not Faith had dogs right now. Gray had collected stray animals, but surely they'd all passed away by now. Mina would have told him if Faith had bought a dog. Of course, Stewie, Mina's big yellow lab, could probably do some damage if he decided he didn't like someone. Not that Stewie ever did. Zach folded his arms, trying to ignore the growing desire to ask Billy to turn the yacht around and take him back to the mainland. Not an option. So he was just going to have to man up and face his sisters.
"You still haven't patched things up with her?"
Eli said.
"You didn't tell me that."
You've been a little busy recovering from nearly killing yourself coming off that damn bike of yours,
Zach pointed out.
Didn't seem like the time to share.
"I don't know,"
Eli said easily.
"Watching you fuck things up is always kind of entertaining."
Right back at ya,
Zach said. The boat hit a wake trail left by a smaller craft and bounced. Eli winced and sucked in a breath, lifting his injured foot off the deck.
How are you holding up?
Zach asked.
"Kind of wishing we'd opted for that chopper,"
Eli said. Billy hadn't wanted to take the ferry, the island's sole form of connection with the California coast, claiming he didn't want to deal with fans. He and Eli had been heading for the island when Zach had announced he was heading home to Lansing. Billy had talked Eli into spending a couple of months on the island to complete his rehab. They'd offered Zach a ride. Eli had vetoed the helicopter idea. Zach wasn't sure if it was because of his injuries or because his best friend had never really liked helicopters since the first time Gray had taken them on a sightseeing flight over Hawaii, and the pilot had decided to play a little game of impress the rockstar client with some acrobatic moves. Gray had loved it. Zach had thought it was pretty cool, too. Eli, on the other hand, had lost his lunch all over the chopper's cabin.
Won't be long now,
Zach said.
We can always get a cab from town up to the house.
Billy's master plan was to moor at the harbor, stock up on groceries at Cloud Bay, and then sail the rest of the way around the island to where the Blacklight guys had all bought land and built houses after the album they'd recorded on the island had turned into their first multi-platinum all those years ago. Why, when Cloud Bay's stores were perfectly happy to deliver, after all, the island wasn't that big, Zach wasn't sure. Maybe Billy just wanted to show off his new boat.
"I might take you up on that,"
Eli said as the yacht bounced again. He braced himself with his right hand. The left was bandaged halfway up his arm. It was supposed to be in a sling, but Eli kept slipping it free, claiming his shoulder ached. The boat jolted a third time. This time, water sprayed over the side of the yacht, half drenching them both.
"Dad, I'd prefer to arrive undrowned,"
Eli called up to Billy.
"You're not going to melt, princess,"
Billy yelled back. Zach grinned. It was mid-May, and the California weather was warm enough that getting wet didn't bother him much. And he was starting to realize just how much he'd missed Eli's company. Zach had spent a big chunk of the last 3 years touring with his band, Fringe Dweller. The relentless schedule didn't leave a lot of time for friends and family. Or hadn't until 2 weeks ago, when their lead singer, Ryder Lang, had suddenly announced he was taking a year off to find himself. Whatever the fuck that meant. In Ryder's case, it wasn't code for going to rehab, as it often was for other musicians. But Zach hadn't been able to get the reason out of him, and neither had anyone else in the band. They'd played the last 2 shows on the tour they'd been finishing in a stew of seething resentment, and then they'd gone their separate ways. Fucking Ryder. Always a drama queen. Zach had